You have been asked to select an outstanding individual who will take over as your successor. We welcome them now into the Power Ranger family.
1996, Power Rangers gave one of its 5 Ranger suits to an 11-year-old. Not a sidekick, not a mascot, a Ranger. Full member of the team, morphs, gets a Zord, the lot. Blake Foster was 11 when they cast him, playing a character the show writes as 12. And he is still the youngest Ranger this franchise has ever had. And 30 years on, no casting decision in this franchise starts an argument faster. So here's the what if. What if they hadn't? What if the person who takes the blue turbo powers isn't a kid at all, but TJ turning up at the start of the season instead of halfway through it? Because that swap sounds tiny, and I think it quietly wrecks the single best handover this show ever did. Receipts first. Then the guessing, and I'll flag the exact moment we cross the line. 3 registers and I'll say them once, so you can hold me to them. What happened? Canon and production record? Stated flat. Why it happened? Casting and business reality, attributed to where it came from. And the what if, which is guesswork, flagged out loud every single time it appears. Start with the vacancy, because the vacancy is the reason for everything else. In Canon, Rocky DeSantos hurts his back. He throws a spin kick in a practice match, lands badly out of the ring, and the injury takes him out of Ranger duty. He can't go on the trip to Miranthius, so he sends a 12-year-old he's befriended in his place. And when he's offered the powers back, he turns them down. He's seen in Shift into Turbo Part 2 still recovering, saying he's happy they're in good hands. That's the story. Now the reality behind it, and here's where I have to be careful. Steve Cardenas left the show, and the accounts of why do not agree with each other. One version says he wanted to focus on his martial arts and open his own school, which he did, in Burbank and San Antonio. Another says contract disagreements, possibly alongside the martial arts career. Admitted gap, stated plainly. I don't know which it was. Nobody involved has ever settled it in public, so both versions stay on the table. What isn't argued anywhere is that the back injury is a story device written to cover a departure, not something that happened to the man. Right. Register 2. Why a kid? Every account of this era in the reference record lands on the same answer. And the answer is demographics. By Turbo, the audience actually watching was running older than the audience the show existed to reach. The toys sell to the young end, and the fix that was reached for was a Ranger the younger end could see themselves as. Not a story reason, a viewership reason. That's the why, and every guess in this video leans on it. And before we cross the ground rule, this video is not a go at a child actor. Blake Foster was 11, and the call we're examining belongs to the adults who made it. 30 long forms in 30 days is the run we're on. This is the one that walks into the fandom's oldest casting row. And here's the detail that tells you how quickly it moved. Blake Foster didn't audition. The way the reference record tells it, the producers were short on time and went to a kid they'd already seen working. Timing matters too, because the decision is older than most people realize. Justin isn't introduced in the TV season. He's introduced in the film. Turbo, a Power Rangers movie, shot in 1996 and came out in March 1997. And the character arrives there, fully formed, before a single episode airs. And that film did not go well. It opened to roughly $3.3 million on a touch over 2,000 screens and finished around $8.4 million domestic, 9.6 worldwide. The 1995 movie had done $66.4 million around the world. So the season that introduces the youngest Ranger ever is launched off the back of a film that took roughly 1/7 of what its predecessor did. Labeled reading. This was a business decision made at speed, and it got treated for 30 years as a creative one. Every argument I've ever seen about Justin is really an argument about a marketing note, and the 11-year-old who turned up to work is the person who's carried the blame for it. And now, the constraint. Because this is what makes the whole video possible, and almost nobody mentions it. Power Rangers Turbo is built on Japanese footage from a series called Car Ranger, which means the Blue Ranger fight scenes already existed, performed by adult stunt performers in an adult-sized suit, shot before anyone in America had cast anybody. So the show does the only thing it can do. Justin morphs into an adult-sized form. He's a kid unmorphed and a grown man in the suit. And that isn't a magic power quirk somebody invented, it's a footage problem wearing a costume. The reference record on the suit adds a lovely production detail. And I'll hedge it, because I could only find it in one place. It says Toei built a child-sized replica of the blue suit, so Blake Foster could be filmed helmet off in it. Take that one as reported, rather than nailed down, but it does line up with everything else about how this was made. Labeled reading. A child ranger is only possible because the show didn't have to film a child fighting. Take away the Japanese footage, and Justin cannot exist. That's the constraint the whole video sits on.
I didn't catch your name.
My friends call me TJ.
TJ. Thanks, man.
Now the other side of the swap, TJ Johnson doesn't turn up at the start of Turbo. He arrives more than halfway through it, in the Passing the Torch two-parter. Episodes 18 and 19. They went out on September the 10th and 11th, 1997. And that story is a proper handover. Demetria's instruction to Tommy, Adam, Tanya, and Kat is blunt. Go out, pick the people who'll replace you, and retire. 4 rookies arrive at once. TJ gets red, Carlos green, Ashley yellow, Cassie pink. Zordon and Alpha come back from Eltar for it. Selwyn Ward played TJ, and he became the first black actor to play a Red Ranger. That's a real milestone, and it happens in that episode. And one person stays in place through the whole thing. Justin. He's the only member common to both teams, the bridge between the old show and the new one. Worth knowing how final that episode is, too. Part 2 is also a last. After it, Jason David Frank, Johnny Young Bosch, Nakia Baris, and Catherine Sutherland are gone from the opening titles. 4 cast names, out of the credits, in a single week. If you were watching live in September 1997, that's the week the show you'd grown up watching turned into a different show in front of you. Because TJ isn't a one-season guy, and this is why the swap costs more than it looks like it should.
Oh!
Hey, who are you? I was blue.
It's me, TJ.
All right, T, you look great
Of
in
course.
blue.
When Turbo ends and In Space begins, TJ moves to blue. Andros is the Red Ranger now, and TJ, who led the team, takes the blue Space Ranger suit and becomes second in command. Read that again. He gets demoted, in public, in front of the audience, and the show doesn't give him a strop about it. He just gets on with it. He's the guy who was red and is now blue and is still the person everybody leans on. And he keeps coming back. Forever Red in 2003, the legendary battle, Dimensions in Danger, and he returned as TJ, in blue, in Super Ninja Steel, in 2018, 20 years after In Space. Selwyn Ward's own path afterwards was quieter than you'd expect, for someone who led the show. Guest spots, a couple of them on Moesha and Passions in the early 2000s, a short film he produced and starred in, and then a long run as one of the reliable faces on the convention circuit. That's the public record, and I'll stop there rather than speculate about a private life. Labeled opinion. TJ is the most quietly well-written Ranger of the Zordon era, and the reason is entirely down to that demotion. Nobody else in this franchise takes a step backwards with that much grace. Hard line. Nothing past this point happened. Everything from here is me guessing, and I'll say so at the top of every section, because I don't want a clip of this doing the rounds with somebody thinking I said it was real. Here's the change. 1996. Instead of taking a marketing note about the younger audience, the production casts an older actor as the new Blue Ranger, and that actor is Selwyn Ward. TJ is on the team from Shift into Turbo Part 1, in blue.
It's so cool being a ranger.
Yeah, but I got a lot of stuff to do with my karate school.
Rocky still leaves. The vacancy is still there. It just gets filled by a grown-up. Guessing, and arguing from what the season actually is. Turbo has a tone problem, and everybody knows it. The season adapts a Japanese series that was made, on purpose, as a comedy of its own genre, and every reference source reaches for that same description. So the source material is already silly. Then you hand a kid a morpher, and the writing follows him, because a 12-year-old character generates a certain kind of story.
Well, of course it does. I can launch an attack at any moment, and the Earth will be completely defenseless.
Take the kid out, and put an adult in, and my guess, the season gets noticeably more serious. The Diva Talks material can land harder. Fewer school-friendly subplots. The show that eventually becomes In Space starts becoming In Space about a year earlier. And I think it's a better Turbo. Genuinely, labeled opinion. But better isn't the same as more valuable. And that's the whole argument of this video, so hold on. Still guessing, and this is the costly one. Passing the torch works because of an imbalance. 4 legends leave, 4 unknowns arrive, all at once in the middle of a season with the audience furious about it. That's why the episode is remembered. It's the largest single cast turnover this franchise has ever pulled, and it lands in one afternoon of television. Now put TJ on the team from episode 1. You've spent 18 episodes making him familiar. So when the handover comes, he isn't a stranger stepping into Tommy's shoes. He's the mate who was already there getting a promotion. That is a much softer, more sensible piece of television. And softer and more sensible is exactly what you don't want from the most dramatic cast change the show ever made. Forecast, labeled. The handover stops being a shock and becomes an admin change. And there's a second cost sitting right underneath it. And this one I want to say carefully. The reason TJ becoming red lands is that a black actor walks into the lead role of Power Rangers in a single, unmissable, hugely watched moment. And the show makes it a formal ceremony. If TJ's been standing in the background in blue since the spring, that moment gets smaller. The milestone still happens. It just happens quietly. Labeled opinion, and I feel strongly about it. I'll take the loud version. The show got that one right, and it got it right by accident of structure. Quick step back out of the speculation, because there's a documented fact here that makes this whole what if less silly than it sounds. Turbo lost its head writers mid-season. Douglas Sloan and Ann Austin, who'd been running the writing since season 2, left partway through. And Judd Lynn was promoted into the job. And the accounts split on whether they chose to go or were shown the door. Nobody's ever put it cleanly on the record, so you're not getting a version from me. What is documented is what Lynn did next. He scrapped storylines that were already in progress. An episode called Rangers in Concert got binned. And the plan that got abandoned was a gradual introduction of the new Rangers. Read that again. There was a version of Turbo where the new team came in bit by bit over the season, instead of all 4 at once in a 2-parter. So, what if TJ turns up early isn't a fan fantasy. It's approximately the plan that existed before somebody changed jobs. Labeled reading, the handover we all remember is the emergency version. It's what you do when you inherit a season halfway through and need to make a clean break. And it's better than the plan, which is a very funny thing to be able to say about a rushed decision. Still guessing, and honestly this is where I get stuck. If TJ's already the Blue Ranger in Turbo, is he the one who gets Tommy's suit? Maybe. The show clearly rated the character, but there's an argument the other way that I can't shake. A production doing a handover episode wants 4 new faces, because the point is a new team. Promoting an existing member and bringing in 3 unknowns is a messier, weaker version of the same idea. So it's genuinely possible that in this timeline, TJ stays blue the whole way through, and somebody else entirely gets the red suit. Which means the first Black-Red Ranger might not be TJ at all. Might be later. Might be somebody we've never heard of. Admitted gap, and I'm not going to fudge it. I can't call that one. There's no interview, no production note, nothing that tells you how the writers would have shuffled it. Any confident answer you hear on this one is invented. Still guessing, 2 threads left. In the real timeline, TJ goes from red to blue between seasons, and that's the small hinge that gives the character everything he's got. In our version, he's been blue since the beginning, so there's no demotion. There's no grace under it. He's just the Blue Ranger who's always been the Blue Ranger, which is fine, and completely unremarkable, and nobody makes a video about it 30 years later.
Reasons? What reasons?
It's his dad. Justin wants to stay with his dad.
And Justin. In the real timeline, he leaves at the end of Turbo, in Chase into Space, choosing to stay with his dad rather than chase Divatox off the planet. His father had a job somewhere else and wasn't going to take it if Justin wanted to stay in Angel Grove, and Justin told him to take it. That's a 12-year-old character being written a genuinely grown-up exit. He comes back exactly once, in an in-space episode called True Blue to the Rescue, and that's his goodbye. In this timeline, he never exists at all, which means the franchise never has a child ranger, and the argument you have been having for 3 decades simply never starts. Labeled forecast, all of it. But that last one might be the real headline. This what if doesn't just change a season, it deletes one of the fandom's oldest arguments. So, the tally. Guesses argued from the casting record and the footage constraints. You gain a more serious Turbo, a tonal bridge into In Space, arriving a year early, and the argument about whether a kid belonged on the team never starting in the first place. You lose the biggest cast handover the show ever staged, reduced to a promotion. The loud, formal, unmissable moment where a black actor takes the lead of Power Rangers. TJ's demotion, which is the making of him. Justin, entirely, and with him the only bridge character between the old team and the new one. Labeled verdict, Mine, casting a child was probably the wrong call for the season, and absolutely the right call for the franchise. And I did not expect to end up here when I started writing this. Here's what I can't put down. The people who made this decision were not trying to make good television. They were looking at a demographic report, and what fell out the far side was a bridge character who held two teams together, a Handover episode people still talk about, and a Red Ranger milestone that landed loud because a kid was already occupying the seat somebody older would have taken. Nobody designed that. It's luck stacked on a footage constraint, stacked on a marketing note. Kids' television is like that, far more often than anybody admits, and I'd rather have the accident than the plan. The algorithm wants everything optimized. That show got it right by getting it slightly wrong. Comments, tune jobs, and be specific. 1. TJ in blue from episode 1. Does he still get Tommy's suit? Yes or no? And why? I genuinely can't call it, and I want to be argued at. 2. Settle it for me. Was casting Justin the worst call in Power Rangers history, or the most underrated one? Be fair to the kid, he was 11. The channel's already got a full deep dive on Turbo as a beautiful disaster if you want this season's whole story. Off you go. Right, that's the video. If you're new here, the deal on this channel is simple. Everything we say gets checked before it goes out. No invented drama, no cursed episode nonsense, no lying to you for a thumbnail. Just the stuff we actually grew up on, told properly, by someone who was there. We're doing 30 of these in 30 days at the minute, chasing 4,000 subscribers, and every single view counts more than you'd think. So if you've got a correction, or a memory from back then, put it in the comments. We read them. Half the ideas on this channel came from someone in there going, hang on, you missed one. And there's another video waiting on your screen right now. Go on then.